Let me help. The small but fierce voice cut through the tense silence of the boardroom. A 10-year-old black janitor's daughter stood alone, eyes blazing with courage, facing a room full of skeptical executives and a furious billionaire CEO. The official interpreter had collapsed just minutes ago. Millions of dollars and thousands of jobs hung in the balance. No one expected her to be the last hope, but ignoring her now could cost them everything. Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice. The boardroom was filled with tension so thick it felt almost tangible. The stakes were high. A $30 million deal that could either save or break Monroe Holdings was hanging by a thread. Minutes ago, the official interpreter had collapsed unexpectedly, leaving the entire room in chaos. Executives exchanged worried glances as the clock ticked mercilessly. The delegation from Dubai, key to finalizing the deal, was arriving any moment now. In the midst of the panic stood a young black girl, barely 10 years old, the daughter of the janitor who worked in the very building where this high-stakes negotiation was taking place. Her presence alone seemed to ignite a wave of doubt and skepticism. Security guards moved toward her swiftly, urging her to leave, but her voice, steady and unwavering, cut through the noise. "I can help," she said firmly, eyes meeting the gaze of the billionaire CEO who was glaring with disbelief. The room fell silent. No one expected this child to be the solution, and yet there was no other choice. Fear and uncertainty hung heavy as the CEO hesitated, caught between disbelief and desperation. The tension was palpable. Every person in the room aware that failure meant not only the loss of millions but also the livelihoods of over 1,000 employees. The walls seemed to close in as whispers of doubt mixed with murmurs of hope. It was a moment charged with pressure, prejudice, and possibility. The voice of the black janitor's daughter echoed loudly, shattering expectations and demanding a chance to prove herself. This was more than a corporate crisis. It was a collision of worlds, race, power, and resilience converging in a room where every second counted. And in that charged silence, the fate of the deal, and many lives, rested on the courage of one unexpected voice. Security guards quickly stepped forward, their faces hard and unyielding, ready to remove the young girl from the room. "This isn't a place for children," one barked, but she stood her ground, pulling free from their grip with surprising strength. "Please, just let me try," she pleaded, her voice calm but resolute. Around the room, whispers rippled like wildfire. Some skeptical, some amused, many filled with doubt. Her mother rushed in, worry etched deep across her face. She looked at the boardroom, then down at her daughter. "She's just a child," she said softly, her voice trembling. But Maya, the janitor's daughter, was no ordinary child. Every day, she faced the subtle and overt barriers of a world that often ignored people like her. The boardroom, with its polished floors and expensive suits, was a stark contrast to the small apartment she called home. Executives paced nervously, casting uneasy glances between the girl and each other. The billionaire CEO folded his arms, his eyes narrowing. "If she fails, we lose everything," he muttered under his breath. The weight of that truth hung heavy in the air. Yet, beneath his harsh exterior was a flicker of hope, a desperate gamble that this unexpected solution might just work. As the moments ticked by, Maya's story unfolded in quiet flashes. The long hours her parents worked, the whispered insults she endured, and the strength she found in those challenges. Her voice had been silenced more times than she could count, but today, it demanded to be heard. The contrast between the boardroom's cold formality and Maya's raw determination was striking. This was not just a test of language skills. It was a confrontation with deeply rooted prejudice. Outside the room, the city buzzed with life, oblivious to the high-stakes drama unfolding within. The skyscrapers reached for the sky, symbols of power and ambition. Inside, Power was measured not by wealth but by the courage to challenge expectations. Maya's mother squeezed her hand, a silent gesture of support and love amid the storm of doubt. Finally, the CEO's voice cut through the tension. "We're out of time. We gamble once," he declared, breaking the silence. The guards reluctantly stepped back, eyes locked on the young girl now standing at the center of the corporate battlefield. A hush fell over the room as all eyes focused on Maya. It was a moment suspended between fear and possibility. The contrast was clear. A world accustomed to dismissing her, now forced to rely on her. Maya took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped forward. The room held its breath. This was more than a business deal. It was a challenge to a system that had long underestimated people like her. And for the first time, Maya was ready to rise to that challenge. The moment the Dubai delegation entered the boardroom, the atmosphere shifted palpably. 5 sharply dressed men and 1 woman in a navy hijab filed into the room, their expressions unreadable but alert. Their eyes flicked toward Maya, the young black girl standing confidently at the edge of this high-stakes negotiation. Whispers circulated in Arabic among the delegates, a language Maya understood perfectly. She met their gaze without flinching, prepared to bridge the gap where so many adults had failed. The lead delegate, Mr. Almurad, began speaking in fluent Arabic. Maya's voice rose clear and steady as she translated, capturing not just words but the subtle nuances and tone that carried weight in every sentence. The boardroom watched, skeptical at first, but slowly began to lean in as she conveyed humor, seriousness, and firmness with equal skill. The CEO, arms folded, observed her silently, a flicker of approval crossing his features. As the discussion moved into legal territory, the complexity deepened. Mr. Almurad outlined changes to the liability clause, laden with diplomatic subtleties that challenged even seasoned lawyers. Maya paused briefly when a crucial word, tasri, came up. Her mind raced. In this context, it could mean permit, declaration, or exemption. The room noticed her hesitation, whispers of doubt surfacing once more. The CEO's eyes narrowed as tension thickened. Refusing to be intimidated, Maya addressed Mr. Almurad directly. "Sir, to clarify, did you mean regulatory exemption or export clearance when you said tasri?" she asked in fluent Arabic. The delegate blinked, then answered, "Regulatory exemption." Relief swept through the room as Maya smoothly continued the translation. Even the most critical board members exchanged approving glances. Maya's confidence grew as she navigated questions from Monroe's legal team and responses from the Dubai delegation. She was no longer just a translator but a crucial player influencing the deal's outcome. Her voice carried the weight of understanding and authority. The CEO's expression shifted from doubt to respect. The initial resistance in the room gave way to cautious optimism. Throughout the negotiation, Maya demonstrated an acute awareness beyond language. She noted the hesitation in the delegate's tone, the subtle concerns of Monroe's CFO, and relayed these insights discreetly to key executives. When the Dubai team expressed worry about payment timing, Maya suggested adding a guarantee of stability to ease concerns. The board swiftly approved the adjustment. Finally, Mr. Almurad smiled and said, "We have a deal." The room erupted quietly, not in cheers but in a palpable release of tension. The $30 million agreement, once teetering on collapse, was saved by the unlikely hero standing before them. Maya stepped back, exhausted but triumphant, as the boardroom acknowledged her role in a moment that would redefine expectations. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual urgency, unaware of how close this deal came to failure and the remarkable young girl who held its fate in her hands. In that boardroom, walls once impermeable to change had been cracked open by courage, intelligence, and the refusal to be underestimated. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. The boardroom's atmosphere shifted as Maya's clarification echoed through the room. The subtle power dynamics, once rigid and impenetrable, began to bend beneath the weight of her confidence and skill. The CEO, previously skeptical and tense, leaned forward in his chair, eyes narrowing not with suspicion but with grudging respect. Even the most seasoned executives found themselves captivated by the child who had stepped into a world that rarely made room for someone like her. Maya's translation no longer felt like a simple exchange of words. It had become a delicate dance of culture, nuance, and trust. She understood that every phrase, every tone, carried meaning far beyond the literal. Her ability to convey not just language but intent won over the room. The Dubai delegation, initially reserved, softened as she carefully navigated the complex legal landscape, interpreting concerns and assurances with a sensitivity that no machine or typical interpreter could match. At one point, Monroe's lead lawyer challenged a clause in the agreement, suggesting it could expose the company to unnecessary risk. Maya caught the tension immediately and offered a thoughtful amendment, one that addressed the lawyer's concern while maintaining the integrity of the deal. The suggestion was met with nods of approval and a rare smile from the CEO. As the conversation progressed, Maya suggested a compromise clause that would provide a win-win solution for both parties. The room buzzed quietly with surprise and approval. The board members, once doubtful, now exchanged looks of admiration. The CEO's posture relaxed, and his voice took on a tone of finality. "If this works, we have a deal." Maya's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. She continued to bridge the gap between cultures, laws, and expectations. The delegation from Dubai responded with renewed confidence, their gestures more open, their smiles more frequent. The tension that had gripped the room loosened, replaced by a growing sense of possibility. Finally, after hours of negotiation, the lead delegate extended his hand. "We have a deal," he declared, the words resonating like a victory bell. The $30 million agreement was saved, and with it, the future of Monroe Holdings. The boardroom, once a fortress of doubt and prejudice, had been transformed into a chamber of unexpected triumph. Maya allowed herself a small smile, the exhaustion washing over her in waves. The room erupted in quiet applause, the executives and delegates acknowledging the improbable hero who had defied their expectations. The CEO stood, extending his hand to her mother in a rare gesture of respect and gratitude. Outside, the city lights of New York shimmered against the night sky, a silent witness to a moment that would ripple far beyond the walls of that boardroom. Maya had not just saved a deal. She had challenged the prejudices that sought to define her and, in doing so, opened a door for those who would follow. The deal was sealed, but the victory felt fragile. As news of Maya's unexpected role spread, the boardroom's walls seemed to close in again, not with celebration, but with whispers of doubt and resistance. The media caught wind of the story, and headlines began to paint a divided picture. Some hailed Maya as a prodigy and symbol of hope, while others questioned her qualifications and motives, subtly weaving in undertones of skepticism rooted in racial bias. Inside Monroe Holdings, the board debated fiercely. "What do we do with her now?" one executive asked, his voice low but tense. The CEO, still grappling with the magnitude of what had just happened, replied, "We need to protect her and the company." A plan was set in motion to shield Maya from the growing backlash while capitalizing on the positive attention her story brought. Outside the corporate bubble, Maya and her family faced a different battle. Social media exploded with conflicting opinions. Trolls and bots spread hateful messages, targeting Maya's age, race, and background. School hallways whispered with gossip, and neighbors looked at her family with suspicion. The safety and well-being of the young girl and her loved ones became a growing concern. Despite the storm, Maya's mother stood firm, offering unwavering support. "She's stronger than they know," she told reporters during a rare interview. Local community leaders rallied behind Maya, organizing support groups and raising awareness about the systemic barriers faced by Black families in corporate America and beyond. Meanwhile, The CEO arranged for Maya to receive mentorship from legal experts and translators who understood both the corporate and cultural complexities she navigated. They recognized that her victory was not just about language skills, but about breaking down walls built on prejudice and exclusion. The company launched an internal initiative focused on diversity and inclusion, inspired by Maya's courage. Training sessions, community outreach, and policy reviews became part of Monroe Holdings' new agenda. But these efforts were met with resistance in some quarters, a reminder that progress often invites pushback. Through it all, Maya remained a beacon of resilience. Her story inspired others to speak out, challenge injustices, and believe in the power of persistence. She continued her studies with renewed determination, aware that her journey had become larger than herself. In quiet moments at home, Maya and her mother reflected on how far they had come. The road ahead was uncertain, but the battles fought and won had planted seeds of change. For Maya, the fight was far from over, but she was ready. The world had seen her voice. Now it was time to use it. The backlash grew fiercer as weeks passed. Online trolls and well-funded smear campaigns aimed to discredit Maya and her family, flooding social media with lies and hateful rhetoric designed to silence her. Bots manipulated trending topics, drowning out supportive voices and casting doubt on her abilities and integrity. The coordinated effort was relentless, reaching far beyond the city limits of New York, into boardrooms and newsrooms across the country. Despite the hostility, Maya refused to be silenced. Supported by a growing network of mentors, activists, and legal advocates, she launched a podcast called Unmuted Voices, where she shared her story and amplified others who had faced similar battles against systemic racism. The podcast quickly gained traction among audiences in the USA, UK, and Canada, drawing attention from human rights organizations and civil rights leaders. Her mentors helped her navigate the complex legal landscape, ensuring she was protected from defamation and harassment. They connected her with community leaders and influential allies who helped amplify her message and provide platforms where her voice could not be ignored. Meanwhile, grassroots movements began to form around Maya's story. Online forums, community gatherings, and social media groups dedicated to fighting racial injustice multiplied rapidly. Maya became a symbol of courage and hope, not just for Black Americans, but for marginalized communities worldwide facing similar struggles. Monroe Holdings, under pressure from shareholders and the public, made public commitments to reform their diversity and inclusion policies. They established scholarships and internship programs aimed at empowering underrepresented youth in corporate America. Maya's victory was transforming from a single moment in a boardroom into a broader movement for equality. But the journey was far from easy. Maya and her family faced threats and intimidation. School days were shadowed by bullying, and the weight of public scrutiny sometimes felt overwhelming. Yet, Maya's resolve only strengthened. She knew her fight was about much more than herself. It was about paving the way for others and challenging a system that had long ignored voices like hers. Her story captured headlines and hearts across continents, a testament to the power of resilience and truth in the face of adversity. The girl who once struggled to be heard in a boardroom was now commanding global attention, inspiring change through her courage and unwavering belief in justice. In quiet moments, Maya reflected on the journey from that chaotic boardroom to becoming a beacon for a movement. The fight against racism was ongoing, but with every story shared and every barrier broken, the future grew a little brighter. The day of the National Summit arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Leaders, activists, and influencers from across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom gathered in a grand hall to address systemic racism and corporate inequality. Maya stood quietly backstage, her heart pounding, ready to share her story on a platform far larger than any boardroom. When she stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. Cameras flashed, and thousands of eyes focused on the young Black girl who had defied expectations and shattered ceilings. With calm confidence, Maya recounted the challenges she had faced. from the skepticism in the boardroom to the relentless smear campaigns. Her voice carried the weight of experience, pain, and hope. Maya's message was clear. Change was possible, but it required courage, unity, and unwavering determination. She called on corporations to open doors for marginalized communities and urged individuals to stand against injustice whenever they encountered it. The crowd erupted into applause. Many moved to tears. Backstage, Maya's mother watched proudly, tears streaming down her face. The journey had been long and arduous, but this moment felt like the beginning of a new chapter. Not just for Maya, but for everyone fighting for equality. Following the summit, Maya's influence only grew. She became an ambassador for several human rights organizations, traveling across cities and universities, sharing her story and encouraging activism. Monroe Holdings honored her family with a scholarship fund in her name, dedicated to supporting Black youth pursuing careers in law and business. At school, Maya found newfound respect among her peers. The same halls that once echoed with whispers of doubt now buzzed with admiration. Teachers and students alike recognized her courage and resilience, seeing her as a symbol of hope and change. Despite the accolades, Maya remained grounded. She knew the battle against racism was far from over, but her story was proof that one voice could make a difference. Her quiet moments at home, sharing meals and laughter with her family, reminded her of the roots that kept her strong. The deal she saved that day in the boardroom was more than just a business victory. It was a beacon for generations to come. Maya's journey had sparked conversations, inspired movements, and challenged systems built on exclusion. In a world too often divided, Maya's voice brought people together. Her courage illuminated the path toward justice, proving that even in the face of immense adversity, hope and resilience could prevail. The story of the Black janitor's daughter was no longer just a tale of survival. It was a legacy of change, strength, and unwavering belief in a better future. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together, we can change the world.